has actually performed several times at Caroline's Comedy Club, the best comedy club in New York, on New Talent Night. So I give you the handsome, the funny, the muscular, Steve Salzberg.
I spend a lot of time thinking about things that just don't make sense to me. I mean, for example, I will not understand why anyone decided to make women's spandex fashions in size larger than 8. And who in God's name came up with plus-size lingerie? I mean, I gotta tell you, there's just certain things that larger people shouldn't wear. Think about me standing here tonight in a Speedo entertaining you. I think you get an idea what I mean. And there's certain things that we have to be aware of our limitations. Bungee jumping, zip lining, not for me. I'm not so worried about starting, but I gotta tell you that stopping is gonna be a challenge. And you know, I've battled weight all my life, but I battled weight in the 60s, okay, when it was a challenge. It was really tough. There was no epidemic in obesity. We rode our bikes everywhere. We walked. We played ball. We were out and about all the time. Now that I think about it, I was kind of like a pioneer. But now, being fat is easy. You call Domino's, you get 3 pizzas for $15. Sit on your couch, channel surf through 250 channels, realize there's nothing worth watching. Then you go downstairs and play video games, or get on your laptop. So it's really very different. Very different when we were kids, because when we were kids, we only had 6 channels. If you were Spanish from around here, you could get Channel 47 and get those Bustelo commercials. But for the most part, it was 6 channels. And we always found something we liked watching. I know that when I went home after school, I watched the Three Stooges every day. I loved the Stooges. I mean, the real Stooges were Curly. You could throw a couple of Shemp episodes in there to remind me of why I love Curly so much. But I got to tell you, Joe Besser, he deserved everything that Mo gave him. There's no question about that. But also, parenting was so much more severe back then. I mean, there was accountability. I told you, I watched the Stooges every day. But I can tell you, if I ever took a hammer and smacked one of my friends over the head, or dragged a saw across their scalp to see if their teeth bent, my dad would have kicked my ass for being stupid. But you know, today, technology is what we have to think about. And I really don't understand how they can build a car that can park itself, tell you if you're drifting into another lane. It can even call your dealer to tell you that you need service. Do you think they could invent a little gadget so that if you leave your dome light on, it turns off after 20 minutes? Your battery is And women. I love women. They're great, great, great creatures. But it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. They can have a kid on each hip, car keys in their teeth, grocery bags in each hand, set a table for 6 people, no problem. Hand them a remote control that has more than 4 buttons, and they're paralyzed. As a matter of fact, you show me a woman that can really handle today's TV remotes, and I'll show you a rare creature. You show me a woman that knows the full complement of remotes in today's home with surround sound, I'll show you a lesbian. And then we got to deal with Facebook. Facebook, another technology we got to deal with. I mean, you have to make the decision. Do I refuse the friend request and come off as a dick? Or do I accept the friend request from the guy I didn't like in high school and don't even remember who he is and now find myself conversing with a dick? It's a tough dilemma. You really don't know where you're going with it. And I also think about how 2 people can do the same things but be labeled so differently. President Obama takes Michelle to New York for a date night. It costs $200,000 to fly her up on Air Force One and provide security. He's labeled a hopeless romantic. Follow me for a moment and picture George W. taking Laura on that same day. I think he'd be labeled a Republican fat cat who has no idea what the average American is facing in terms of economic times. I also have to wonder, why, if you disagree with Obama's politics, are you labeled a racist? Shouldn't you just be labeled Republican? But anyway, I'm Jewish, my wife's Italian. But in my house, I cook the pasta fazool. And my wife makes some of the best matzo ball soup you'll ever taste, honest to God. But I will tell you, it's still a little unusual for me to hear her say some of the things she says, my Italian wife. She's in the kitchen cooking matzo ball soup, and I hear, ooh, my Canadaluk are so fluffy. And don't worry, she wasn't talking dirty. Canadaluk is Yiddish for matzo balls, which also isn't dirty. But she says other things too that surprise me. I mean, I ever thought my wife would say, does anyone know where the coupon for the free box of matzah is? Or, oh my God, we're out of Yorkshire candles. And of course, my favorite, what shawl should I wear at temple? But the religion that really confuses me the most is the Taliban. I do not understand the conflict there. I mean, these people raise poppies and make heroin, but they're against drinking liquor. They have machine guns and rocket launchers that cost thousands of dollars, and they can't afford a nice pair of shoes. They wipe their ass with their bare hand, but they won't eat pork because pigs are unclean. They won't let their kids watch television because it's dangerous, but they let them run around with explosives. And they'll stone a woman for any number of minor sins. Now, Catholic woman commits a sin, goes to confession, says a couple of Hail Marys, promises not to do it again, end of story. Jewish woman commits a sin, all right, she has to buy costume jewelry for 6 months. And many women consider that very, very harsh, but it's not stoning. Although some Jewish women consider it precious stoning. In the old days, when you go to a good Chinese laundry and get a great starched collar, can't go to Chinese laundries anymore. Politically incorrect. You can go to any number of dry cleaners run by Chinese people, but you can't go to the Chinese laundry. But yet, you can still say you want to go to a Chinese restaurant, or a Jewish deli, or a Japanese steakhouse, and that's okay. It's all very confusing to me. I really don't get it. I also can't stand people that mumble when they leave messages. I had a friend that leaves me a message. He invites me to dinner, tells me his sister's coming over the house, and wants me to come to dinner as well, and tells me that his sister's kid's very artistic. I'm a nice guy. I go buy the kid a paint-by-number set. I was horrified. I found out the kid was autistic. Another friend tells me to come over for dinner, and he tells me his wife's organic. Again, I want to be a good guest. I go to a special place where they grow these great vegetables. I bring this wonderful platter. I bring it over. During dinner, he leans over and he says, dude, I said very orgasmic. I also find words very funny. I mean, I often confuse genitals and Gentiles. It just happens. And flatulence. Now, flatulence is a funny word. I mean, it's like a plague. There was petulance and flatulence struck a land. And I would imagine if there was a lot of flatulence, it could very well be a plague. And what about funny sayings? When somebody says, hey, I may be dumb, but I ain't stupid. I think they're both. And can anyone here tell me what does not for nothing mean? I can't figure it out, but I can tell you in East Africa it's like a mantra. And also I'll tell you, these drug companies, the commercials that are on TV, they're incredible. They're scary. I was watching one the other day for depression, a new depression drug. And after they spent about 12 seconds telling you what the drug could do for depression, they then warned you that it could cause stroke, heart attack, high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction, dry mouth, dizziness, and constipation. And it also could make your depression worse to where there might be a move towards suicide. By the end of the commercial, I thought they were offering suicide as a cure. And then, when all this is going around, a friend of mine says, no, don't mess with that. You should go for the homeopathic remedies. Now, not that there's anything wrong with that. But I personally think we need to sort out the ideas on gay marriage before we take any of their meds. And I got a lot of doctors here tonight. I really have to know. Does anyone really choose to go to med school to be a proctologist? See, I don't think so. I think that all med students start out wanting to be brain surgeons, cardiologists, or neonatologists. But there's a weeding out process, and after a while, we start to realize that not everyone's going to do that. So some of the guys are told to set their sights a little lower. About 3 feet lower. About proctology in Latin means go 3 feet low. Anyway, I had to see a proctologist a few years ago, and I'm up on the table on all fours, and as he's getting ready to insert a sigmoid scope into me, poor sigmoid, can you imagine? Dr. Jarvik will forever be known as the guy who invented the artificial heart. Meanwhile, poor Ziggy has to be known as the guy that invented a tube to look up someone's behind. But anyway, he's ready to insert the scope, and he says to me, hey, listen, don't be nervous. You may feel as though you have to evacuate, and you may let out some gas. And I'm wondering why he's warning me when his face is 6 inches away from evacuation. So anyway, he's poking and prodding around there, and he says to me, what do you do for a living? And I tell him I'm a salesman. He actually stops what he's doing, and he says, wow. How do you deal with that kind of rejection? And I look back at him and I go, hey pal, at least in my line of work, the worst thing that can happen to me is I can get a door slammed in my face. Thank